What's going on, everybody? This is Cabale with CabaleMedia.com, and in today's video, we are going to talk about email marketing creative. Stay tuned. Today, we are going to discuss email creative, the elements of the creative, imagery, what types of images to use, how to use them, etc. For those who don't know, about almost 17 years ago, I started primarily off as a graphic designer. And what I was doing was designing emails in Photoshop and then slicing up the PSD, coding it in Dreamweaver, HTML, CSS, and then handing it off to the email marketing manager. I had no type of email marketing experience. And then a few years later, I got into email marketing as a whole. So that is still including design, not as much hand coding, because things like Klaviyo, Constant Contact, HubSpot, OmniSend, so on and so forth, already had a WYSIWYG editor that you didn't need to do all those custom templates. You very much still could, and I still can for my clients, but it's not necessary unless you have something that you really need to get done and it needs to be a custom template. But I don't see it as necessary if you're doing a basic email, but there are brands who have custom templates, so you can choose to do that if you want. I think it does make sense to do custom templates if you have a certain type of email that needs to go out, but if you can do it in the basic WYSIWYG editor, you are good to go. Today, we are going to go into the top 10 email creative / imagery things you can do or apply to email marketing, and then we'll do the additional 10 in the next video. You can get an idea of things you can put into your email marketing if you haven't done these already, or things that you've done before and ways to improve them. One thing I want to talk about is visual hierarchy. Some people just don't know how to use hierarchy correctly, and you have to use the hierarchy correctly because it guides the reader's eye through the email in a logical order. You wouldn't put, say your email is based on, let's say, selling mugs, right? You wouldn't put the accessories to the mugs on top, because the mug is the major or the primary goal of the email, to sell that mug, and then you put things maybe like tea bags or accessories, mug holders, possibly selling coffee, possibly selling teas below it. We have to emphasize the importance of the email first. Again, whether that be mugs or whatever it is, you have to emphasize that at the top because that's the primary and the main subject of the whole email. Establishing a clear visual really improves the readability and comprehension of the reader, ensuring that the key message is conveyed effectively. The key point stays at the top, and then you go on from there. Techniques, you want to use things like size, scaling, focal points with certain elements. You have that bokeh look where the main subject is in focus and then everything behind it is blurred. You're just drawing more attention to the main object or the main subject. And then apply things like contrasting colors. I'll just say, if your mug is blue, use orange. And that's something that I've learned in color theory. And you can look up color theory online. It tells you how to use certain colors in order to provoke a feeling. But contrasting colors, and that's New York colors, blue and orange. But you can find examples online of what colors work best with each other in order to bring that image forward. And then also incorporate white space strategically. It's better to do that to leave this balance. You don't want it to be cluttered and then it doesn't look correct. It's hard to explain unless you do it. I'm going to try to, in the next few weeks, show some examples of these. These are just the actual strategies you can implement. And then if you want, we can also do a video where I show examples of what visual hierarchy could look like or should look like, and then how to imply or incorporate white space strategically to separate the main image and then everything else. Number 1 is visual hierarchy. Color schemes, you want to stay consistent with your brand. So if your brand colors are red and black, those are the colors you should be using. Of course, you can throw in pops of color, and we spoke about it before, visual hierarchy, where you can use contrasting colors in order to show the main image and things like that. But you want to stick with the brand identity because you don't want to be all over the place. You just have to align the colors with the brand's personality. Obviously, if you're a happy brand, you're going to have bright colors like the blues and the yellows. Make it very bold and vibrant and charming. Also, something like blue can be very calm and serene and soothing. If you have something like a meditation app, and I'm sure everybody has heard as calm, things like that tend to invoke an emotion. If you're a company that's maybe in finance, maybe it's green. If you're a company about selling things for your loved ones, maybe you can use red. You just have to use the colors accordingly. And that leads us into the psychology of colors, where, like I said before, that the invoking of the emotion, what is going to make you feel a certain way. Red is for love, or it can be a sense of urgency. Blue can be trust or calm, like I said before. Choose colors that align with the message and then enhance the overall impact of the email. It just will make the email feel more comfortable and relatable to the user. Font choices. You have to find fonts that are reflecting your brand's tone. You obviously wouldn't have this fun type of font if you're in finance. You wouldn't have a very serious type of font if you were a clothing brand. Use fonts accordingly, and I really wouldn't use more than 1 or 2, tops 3. For your brand, you obviously have the logo, and then you have headlines, and then subtext. You want to stay within font families, and then maybe use the bolds and the italics. Then you have to think about what you're going to use for headings, what are you going to use for body text. You want to create a real cohesive look and then combine them together. Also be aware of readability. If people can't read your email, they're not going to read it. You have to make it skimmable. And I've said this in past videos, that the subscriber has to be able to read it with no issues. You want to highlight the main points of the email so they can see the bold, see the italics, and then skim through the rest of it. You obviously don't want to use font that's too small or too big. Fonts like 14 or 16 body text are perfect, and then avoid using too many different fonts in one emails. Again, typography, using a certain font for the headline, certain font for the body, and then combining them together for a very cohesive look. You also want to maintain consistency through your emails. You don't want one email to be 14, 16 font, then another one to be 18, then another one to be 12. You want to stay in your brand guidelines to always make sure you're staying within your brand font size, formatting rules, etc. Once you have your fonts in order, then from there you can use typography accordingly. You want to use high quality images as much as possible. Influencer brands are a little bit different because you are essentially promoting the influencers that are promoting your product. They're your overall marketers. They're your marketers. But you want to have your obvious catalog images of the apparel or tees or clothing or whatever it is you're selling or whatever it is you're marketing. Always have high quality images so you can show the detailing of whatever you're selling, how sturdy it is, how durable it is. The customers are going to be more likely to buy. If the images are low quality, it's not going to look too great. You're kind of going to shoot your brand quality down, which you don't want to do. Stay away from blurring pixelated images because it just looks awful. High quality images or HQ images all the time. Then you also have to think about compressing your images so they load fast in emails. The main image or the image that you're currently using as in your high quality image is fine. You just have to reduce that down to 72 TPI so it is perfect for emails or anything that's rendering. So websites, apps. Always make sure you're using JPEGs for photos or PNGs to balance the quality and size. You want to add things like alt text in your email just in case there's someone who has a browser like Outlook, and it does happen. The images don't load. Always use alt text, meaning the name of the image or what's in the image. Always put in the alt text what the image is about. If it's a boy with a dog, you would put something like that. They'll know exactly what the image is when they open the email. Responsive emails. If you're not doing mobile optimization, then that's not a good thing since over 50% of people open their emails. You want to design emails that are fully responsive and then adjusting them to different screen size or orientation. Good thing for most people is that they're using things like HubSpot and Klaviyo and so on and so forth. So those emails you could actually design in the mobile view to see exactly what you're doing. But of course, if you are doing custom templates, that is another extra step where you have to make sure that you're mobile optimizing for certain sizes, right? Different phones, different sizes of phones, iPads, iPhones, so on and so forth. You have to make sure you have a fluid grid, and then implementing flexible grids is just going to make your email overall just better looking. And when I mean fluid grids, it means adapting to various screen sizes and then just making sure the content remains structured and visually appealing. Grids are hard to explain unless you're a developer, but it's basically a system or a grid that ensures that everything is in line with each other in order for it to be mobile optimized correctly. This may not apply to a lot of you, considering that most of you are probably using ESPs or email service providers that already have the designers in them, the WYSIWYG editors, and you're able to just drag and drop and add columns and rows as needed. Things like that, media queries, CSS, those things don't necessarily apply to most people. Just test your emails accordingly and ensure that they look good across most mobile devices, your iPhones, your iPads, your Samsungs. You don't have to be too worried about the older models because most people aren't opening from those anyway. Just keep in mind the most popular ones. Gmail is another great one that people look in. So you should probably have a list of your top 10 phones or operating systems that you're going to send to, or find a list of them on the internet. I'm not totally sure what they are, but I can tell you that we generally meaning myself and my team, iPhones, the last few recent ones, so anything from iPhone 15 to like say 13, and then the current Samsungs. Test accordingly, send a test sense to yourself and a few other devices, and you should be good to go. Interactive elements, things like GIFs. GIFs are great because it makes the fun email and exciting. You don't have to do that. There's also a possibility that the email can slow down a little bit, but GIFs are great. It just adds some interactivity, and they actually look really cool. I actually love GIFs in emails, but it's really depending on your brand. Use animations sparingly and don't overwhelm the user with them because then it will get old. But things like animated GIFs, you can do things like different colors for links and buttons because it gives the users a reason to click, whether that be bold font, different colors, different underlines, different text. Try different button colors and links and then see what happens. But you can also use things like surveys and forms. Obviously, things like that are highly dependent on what you have available to yourself. There are tons of options that I'm not going to go into right now, but I've also expressed those in other videos. But I know that Klaviyo has a form that you can use. There's certain forms you can incorporate in your emails that don't embed into the email, but you can send them a link to. So GIFs, button links, surveys, and form are a great way to use email creative to spruce up your email. The importance of white space. You don't want things to look too cluttered because the email at that point is just not appealing. White space or negative space just prevents the email from looking overdone, and it allows the content to breathe. If your content's not breathing, it's kind of just smushed in. But if you use the white space, it enhances readability and focus, and it gives the reader time to digest the email. If they're looking at this one big clump of information, they're probably not going to be able to digest it well. Give it room to breathe and then add balance. Distribute the white space evenly around the perimeter, around certain images. It really highly depends, and I can't give you this perfect example, but obviously you want a little margin in between pictures and padding, and you don't want the email text to go way across and hit the edges. Adding white space around is perfect. Use the white to focus the intention on what's important, so right in the middle, and then you have the white perimeter around it that's giving it sort of a border. We like white space here. Consistent branding. You want to use consistent logos, consistent icons that show how prominent your brand is. For example, dropping it in the email header. Logos right there, possibly dropping it in the email footer. Use those things to showcase your brand. You want to use branded icons and branded graphics. Things that are generally always in your email or almost all of your emails. When people see icons, they know, hey, that's this person's brand. Or if they see the logo, they know it's that person's brand. Don't give the user time to guess. You always want to be obvious when it comes to branding all the time. Make sure you stay consistent with your brand voice, your logos and icons, and then use templates that you've always used before. And then create templates. The templates are consistently running through the cycle of, say, for example, transactional emails, sale emails, and you can always use these over and over and over so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But you know that if you use these templates, you're always going to be on brand. Use templates accordingly, use icons and logos accordingly, and establish a brand voice. Infographics. Infographics are a great way to convey information. You can add them as data in emails, and it just breaks down complex information. Now, your brand may not need complex information broken down, but maybe they do. If you have a service or a store, something like that would make sense, but maybe if you have an e-commerce store, it wouldn't. But I could be wrong too, depending on what you're selling. Let's say you sell mouse traps. Maybe you put an infographic together on how mice are caught during certain months. This is totally made up in my head, but it just shows the breakdown onto why you would need mouse traps. That overall engages, and that right there would engage your customers to possibly click on the email and then go to your website. And then you want to do things like sharing. Maybe people want to share an infographic. Infographics can definitely be a positive thing with email creative. You just have to learn how to use it correctly. Minimalist design. You can use very minimalist art if any of this is making sense to you. There are brands that literally just use a header, an image, and that honestly may be all you need. Create clean and aesthetic graphics. And if that means just using a very sharp image with a logo and some body copy, do it. If it means maybe just overlaying some text over an image, do it. Emails don't have to be complex, but they have to be attractive. They have to be relatable. They have to make sense. And if you can make sense with just an image and body copy, then you're way ahead of most of us. That whole concept of less is more is actually great because you're just focusing on the main product itself. You're not adding things to the bottom. You're not adding different layers, different rows, different columns. It's just going to look clean overall. And if you're going to stay minimalist, and if you're going to stay minimal, always stay minimal. If that's going to be your brand, make sure that's your brand because you can't go from minimal to extreme overnight. This doesn't look good unless you do a rebrand. Minimalist design for your email creative. All right, that was the top 10 email creative ideas for your email marketing. I hope you like this video. Part 2 to come next week, about 11 through 20 on how you can improve your email marketing with email creative. Hope you like this video. You can like, share, and subscribe. You can comment down below or shoot me a comment and tell me how you feel about it, if you like it, if you don't like it, or what kind of videos you want to see. You can email me at jcabale@cabalemedia.com. You can subscribe, put the buttons here, somewhere. You can go to cabalemedia.com, schedule your free 30-minute consultation about all things email marketing. Yeah, and I'll see you at the next video.